We're back with our conversation with Senate Majority Leader Kate Lieber and House Majority Leader Julie Fahey. The Republican-led Senate walkout that nearly derailed this session was mainly over bills regarding abortion, transgender health care, and guns. This is what Minority Leader Tim Kotek told our reporter Lisa Balick when that walkout ended.
Senator, what's the one thing that you would point to that broke the logjam finally?
Really, the Democrats willing to negotiate and to work with us in a bipartisan way to try to get these bills done in a way that respected our values and their values.
What concessions did Democrats have to make to get the GOP back on the Senate floor? And are you satisfied with the compromises on those particular bills?
Well, I am satisfied with them, and I think the main takeaway is that we live by our values, and we continue to do so even within the compromises that we made. We went into this session saying that we're going to codify Roe versus Wade, and we did that. We went into this session saying we're going to have sensible gun regulation, and we did that. We tried to listen to what the Republicans wanted and listen to what they were telling us they needed in order to get them back in the building. But that took some time for us to have those real conversations around that. You know, we made sure that we didn't lose any of the gender affirming care that we had put in 2002. And we made some small tweaks to the parental notification statutes, but otherwise, we feel really good about the compromises that we made to get them back in the building. And I'll just say that what was hanging in the balance was the entire rest of session. And that was really something that we as Democrats knew that we needed to make sure that we were able to get past. And so we were able to then do all of the work that we did in homelessness and do the work in the criminal justice and do work that we did with wildfires and climate. So all of those things were hanging in the balance. And I couldn't be more proud that we were able to get that accomplished.
Yeah, Portland Mayor Wheeler praised the legislature for recriminalizing fentanyl as he was considering a ban on open drug use to deal with the growing problem. But you didn't go any further than that regarding Measure 110, which, as you know, is very controversial, which decriminalized most drugs. Why didn't you go further than where you went with that issue in the legislature? Representative Fahey?
Yeah, Ken, so I would say we passed a bill called the Hope and Recovery Act that made some improvements to the implementation of Measure 110 so that Oregonians who are struggling with addiction can get access to the care that we need. We passed the fentanyl bill that you mentioned that, will hold bad actors accountable so they can be charged for possession of fentanyl. And we invested record amounts in behavioral health care and addiction treatment. So investing in expanding facilities and the workforce. I will also say personally, I think that the aspect of Measure 110 that needs some additional scrutiny is the connection between people who are in addiction and getting them access to treatment. I don't believe personally that calling a 1-800 number, telling someone to call a 1-800 number when they're in the throes of addiction is the right way to connect them to treatment. So that's something I'm really hoping we, in the interim, can focus on and bring back a proposal in the short session.
The legislature also dealt with the public defender crisis, in which hundreds of suspects are either languishing in jail or out on the streets because there aren't enough public defenders. Explain what the legislature did on that front. Senator Lieber?
So we had a bill that really restructures the way we deliver public defense services in Oregon. We also put, I believe, almost $100 million towards it. The bottom line is really that we've got to make sure that we're paying public defenders in a way that is going to attract more public defenders to this work. The legislature realized that we have to pivot on how we're delivering those services. For example, one of the ways that we're going to start doing that is we're going to start hiring more public defenders as state employees and make sure that we can continue to build a robust system as state employees. We're also looking to make sure that we are billing differently. So we're trying to go to a direct billing system where attorneys are going to bill hourly. And all of those things are going to remake the way that we deliver public defense services in Oregon.
Another big issue in Oregon and Washington, replacing the I-5 bridge. So did the legislature deal with this state coming up with its share for that project?
We did, Ken. At the end of session in our bonding bill, we committed Oregon to our commitment to fund that bridge, which we know, the state of Washington has committed $1 billion, and the federal government, we're hoping, will contribute even more. So that was a part of the piece that we knew needed to get done. That bridge needs to be replaced in the event of a significant earthquake. So was proud of the work of the Transportation Committee to get that done.
And how much money are we allocating to that from the state of Oregon?
It's a total of $1 billion, but over the next several bienniums.
All right. Well, if the governor signs it, Oregonians will get to pump our own gas now. What was the thinking in passing that after all these years?
Well, I'll take that one since I was one of the two sponsors of that bill. So what we've seen in attitudes from Oregonians is that they've shifted over the years. There have been a couple of recent polls in the last couple of years that have shown that about 2/3 of Oregonians support having a choice at the pump. So the bill that we passed, the House and the Senate, waiting for the governor's signature, would give Oregonians a choice. It would say, if they want to, gas stations can offer up to 50% of their pumps to be self-service. They have to have at least 50% be full service, but half of them can be self-service. So it really gives a choice. People who want to pump their own gas can pump their own gas. People who still want full service can have full service. For me, I think about it just like at the grocery store. If I'm in a hurry and there's a line, I'll go to the self-checkout. But if I have a lot of items and I'm not in a hurry, I definitely use the full checkout lanes. And I expect that that's what many Oregonians will do as well if the governor signs this bill.
We're almost out of time, but briefly, Senator Lieber, what do we need to get to, especially as we look forward to the short session in February? What was left on the table, if anything?
Well, I mean, there's the ongoing work, right? I mean, homelessness and housing is not going to go away, and there's ongoing work that we have to do with regard to that. We've got to make sure that the investments that we have made are doing what we think they're going to do. So making sure that we have accountability within our system is going to be something that's going to be really important as we head into the short session, which is actually not that far away, about 7 months from now. And we've got to continue to make sure that we're listening to Oregonians, not only listening to our colleagues across the aisle, but make sure that we're listening to Oregonians from sort of all four corners of the state to understand what they continue to need from the legislature.
Thank you both for being here. Great discussion, and congratulations on getting through this session.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ken.